Okay, the dominoes as that we talked about so far. You get to reach an affordability low, that kicks off the end of a boom by increasing inventory. Inventory increasing stops price increases. Price increases stopping starts creating more foreclosures, people that can't get out as easily. When people lose their homes and builders stop building, you start having this chart affected employment. We just had a job report this morning. They were expecting 112,000 positive. They got -4. That probably means an interest rate cut by the Fed. We'll talk about that in a second. But jobs are now going the other way. We're probably in for a recession. And so that's going to be part of what we have to deal with is now we're going to have job losses, which usually means less earning power for people and a little bit more discomfort. Next chart. When you have all this unfold, the next domino is that people leave the state of California. This is a moving chart back in 2006, and it was a reaction again to the affordability number hitting its all-time low. This is one of the dominoes. This is renting a truck. If you go from Anaheim to Salt Lake City, Utah, it's $1,576. Go from Salt Lake back to Anaheim, it's $516. It's 3 times as much. What's the deal? It's about the same distance, right? Okay. Unfortunately, what's happening is we're having lots more people go from Anaheim to Salt Lake than we are from Salt Lake to Anaheim. That's why you have a price difference. Next chart. We updated it to 2007. It seems like most of them have gotten more expensive, but the difference is, let's take a look at Dallas, Texas. $3,700 to go from Anaheim to Dallas and $792 back. We don't have to wait for a census to figure it out. We're already losing migration. Losing migration means you have less people to sell to. And so California is already there. We're already losing migration to other states. And that causes and adds to our problem. And by the way, that happened last time as well. Next chart. This is a history of interest rates since 1970. I've heard this on the radio as a quote from economists. Of course, you know that interest rates or real estate prices always follow interest rates, meaning that the cheaper interest rates get, the better real estate does. That makes perfect sense? It's wrong, just so you know. And that's why it's very important to understand. This is our last real estate recession, 1990. We peaked our price in 1989 at 10%. We got down to a little over 6.5, 6.25, and during that cycle, we went up in foreclosures 1,000%, while interest rates were coming down from 10 to 6.5. Interest rates declining don't solve a thing. We're about to have probably an interest rate decline, and in the newspapers very shortly you'll have them declare victory that good news for real estate is on its way. Lowering interest rates increases affordability, and there we go. Nope, that isn't how it works. You will have lower interest rates help some of the people that have adjustable mortgage payments, but that's not going to be the total solution. One of the things that would be very important as a solution for our country's problem is if we put a moratorium on due-on-sale clauses for all fixed loans. That would take a genius idea from somebody to pull that off, but it needs to happen. The only way we got to our median price was we had a 40-year low interest rate, and we decided that no one had to qualify for the loan. They could just state whatever they wanted. If we don't move that interest rate that's on those fixed-rate loans forward and let people just walk in and take those over, that's going to be a serious problem, because now we've changed the game where they actually have to qualify. They have to get probably a fixed-rate loan, and they have to actually have a job and a W-2 and a tax return. That is very, very different from where we were. And so interest rates declining is not going to change the ability for people to qualify. It's also not going to change the ability for us to have a secondary market that trusts the paper we've created, because there's a lot of people that are about to get burned by buying the subprime loans. They did not know that people had lied on their application, and those loans would go bad a great deal of the time. So interest rates going down is going to have a marginal positive effect on real estate. A friend of mine, Bill Gatton, has created a device actually to take real estate interest rates forward, and the lender can't call the loan due. It's called a packed trust. It's a brilliant device. It's been tested in court, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of files with Countrywide where the loans are in other people's names owned by a trust, and there's nothing a lender can do. So he's got a device that brings that forward. That's a very smart way to make it to the future and get these interest rates to be the low interest rates to go forward. That's a great idea. Next. This came out in 2005 in December. This was a document that was mailed to lenders. It's about 42 pages. I read it word for word at the time it came out, and I just knew that when this kicked in, this was going to be a big problem. Institutions should avoid the use of loan terms and underwriting practices that may result in the borrower having to rely on the sale or refinancing the property once amortization begins. Loans to borrowers who do not demonstrate the capacity to repay as structured from sources other than the collateral pledged are generally considered unsafe and unsound. Institutions determined to be originating collateral-dependent loans may be subject to criticism, corrective action, and higher reserve requirements. Probably a month ago, you had a large company, American Loan, it was the 10th largest lender in the country, go out of business, and it took 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks for them to go from 10th largest lender to doors closed because they had a problem with some of their loans going bad, and they also ended up having their credit line shrink because of that. They were in the middle of funding millions of dollars of loans, which they could not fund because they no longer had access to credit, because they had a past history of people starting to default on their loans. There's over 100 lenders that have gone out of business since January of 07 because they've had the same problem. We just created too much paper that wasn't good. So this is what's caused our problem. We have a new word, actually a new old word to deal with again, and it's called ratios. Ratios means that lenders actually look at what you make and say you can only afford to buy so much house. When you have stated income loans, you just arbitrarily say this is the number I make, and the ratios sort of went out the window, but now they're back, and that's going to take a toll on the prices that we're able to charge. Just to show you how out of whack that is, at the peak market in 1989, when we got to that 17% affordability, we were at 5.7 times our median income. Today we're at 9 times our median income, and we're at 16% affordability. We were allowed to get there because we had a 40-year low interest rate, but we also had the price escalate because we just said arbitrarily that we made more than we really did. And so now if things return back to normal, that's a big problem because our median income and our median price might go back to a multiplier of maybe 5.7. That's a long journey down in price. Next chart. This is a map of the subprime loans across the country. And down here, they have what they think is not a delinquency rate, but a foreclosure rate for all of the subprime mortgages that were written in 2006. California is projected to have 21 to 24% of all subprime loans go bad. Not just go delinquent, but go to foreclosure. The subprime loan business dwarfed the FHA and the VA loan business by 8.5 times. So literally that's equivalent to having every FHA loan and VA loan go bad for 2006 times 2. That's a lot of loans. So if you're in the foreclosure accounting business, you're going to be really busy. If you're in the foreclosure buying business, you're going to have tremendous opportunity because there's not going to be enough interest by the owner-occupant to take up all this inventory. And so there's going to be some tremendous discounts and opportunities to buy real estate at well below replacement cost, and that's what usually happens. Next chart. One of the things that happens, we talk about, I've heard a lot about a soft landing, how that was going to emerge from this whole mess. And one of the things people don't realize is there's an attitude change. In 1989 and 2005, when you get down to the bottom of affordability, you're faced with a buyer that wants real estate so bad, but they no longer qualify. That changes radically when you get to 1997 and maybe 2010, where you have a buyer that can qualify, they just no longer want it. And so that's why that journey upwards in affordability is not significant for real estate because the interest isn't there. The capacity is, but the interest is not. The interest returns, oddly enough, with another chart, and that had to do with migration trends. When migration comes back to California, that creates demand, that supports our market. And last time it happened when our prices got less than Colorado's, Utah, Oregon, and Washington. All those neighboring states were more expensive than California. And it's at that point California wins the battle because we have the climate and we have people that want to be here. But until we get our prices back down to a more reasonable number, that's going to be a problem. Next chart. Warren Buffett, it's only when the tide goes out that you learn who's been swimming naked. There's been a lot of people swimming naked, not just people, but a lot of builders, lenders, with policies that there's just no way that they were going to work over a long period of time. You have owners that were speculating, they were borrowing money that there's no way they really could afford the payment, but they decided to take a chance, and they knew in their mind that the real estate would simply just keep on going up, and that would bail them out. And one of the ways that the market was able to sell the mortgages that they were writing was that it had a successful track record. So if you wrote a loan in 2002, by 2003 the price went up 20%, and magically everybody could make their payment or everyone could get a refi, and so it looked like it was working. It looked like that until about August of 2005, and all of a sudden the prices stopped escalating, and everybody was faced with the reality that I probably fibbed on my loan app and my payment's going to adjust and I can't make it. And if prices go down, you can't refi it. And now we have our loan standards have changed. And so now what used to work when you borrowed money no longer does. Now you actually have to show income and be able to prove it, maybe even give tax returns. And so that's how radical it's changed. There was a gentleman that was the first editor of the Wall Street Journal, and he wrote a book in the late 1800s. And he said, his name was Charlie Dow, he said, you can tell where you are in a cycle of investing by the emotion that you feel toward it. The crowd feels this way toward that investment. He said, the first emotion in a downturn is denial. And that was 2005 and 2006 for real estate in California. It started to feel a little different, but everyone still kept on saying, no, it's going to be a soft landing. This time it's different. California has a diverse economy, a shortage of land, and all the standard reasons it always has used. The second emotion is concern. My stuff's not selling. You know, these REO agents, everyone wants to be an REO agent until they become one, because they get 100 listings and they have 2 sales. They're managing 100 listings. They're paying 100 electric bills. They're having to see 100 properties once a week, take pictures, send them back to the lender because of this automated system that's so nifty. But they won't lower the price to let them sell anything, so they're not making any money. So we've got a system that's sort of crunched in, and so now people are concerned. At the very bottom, you have capitulation. You have an asset that everyone is so afraid of, they just say, you know what, whatever price we can get for it, let's get it and let's get out. It's at that very point that a very astute investor looks at that same asset and goes, man, that's cheap. I think I'll have some of that. And that begins the other cycle, the bull cycle. And the first group nibbles. The very experienced people start nibbling at the inventory. Then the investment goes until it gets accepted. By 2000, let's say, real estate started feeling pretty good to most people. By 2005, we reached euphoria, and in euphoria, you assume that nothing can go wrong and that everything is perfect with this investment. It'll continue on forever. And suddenly we find out, because of the charts being of a repetitive nature, we find out that, nope, it's pretty much like it was last time. Charlie Dow said, if you want to get rich, it's real simple. You discipline yourself to sell to the euphoric and to buy from the fearful who capitulate. You have to be disciplined enough not to go along with the trend. What we've created for our investors is kind of a cheat sheet to know when those things come and go in California. And it's a very valuable tool for an investor to have. You want to sidestep the damage of a market between 90 and 97 and take advantage of it. In 1989, during the last cycle, at the peak, I did not do that correctly. I built 7 custom homes. It started in 1989, about June or July. Didn't get done with them until June of 1990. I started out in a market that was booming, and I knew I would be able to sell them very easily. I bought a golf cart that would hold 6 or 8 people, because I knew I had to drive lots of people because there was so much interest. By the time we got to the summer of 1990, no one ever got on that cart. My houses, we couldn't draw one person to see it. We ran a full-page ad in the Palm Springs paper. No one even called. That's when you know you've built the wrong house. And so we struggled through that. And I just got tired of taking other people's word about how things work, so we figured it out ourselves. We decided we'd share that because we felt that it was a big advantage to our investors to know when it was time to cash in their chips and when it was time to get aggressive. For real estate investors, not speculators, we're about to have the time of our life. The people that have the loans that are taking back all these properties are going to become capitulators. They're going to unload their inventory. I heard a great definition. I hope I can remember it. Capitulation is when your fear of looking stupid is overwhelmed by your fear of losing everything. That is a great statement. So lenders are trying to retain not taking losses on properties, and so they're going from 5,000 to 10,000 in 6 months. And if they try to go from 10,000 to 20,000, their fear of looking stupid will force the closing of their doors. And so at some point they go, okay, you tell us what it's worth. And at that point, investors who are prepared to write a check for that or have access to money will buy properties way below replacement cost. And that's when real estate investing investing, not speculation, it'll be our heyday. 90 to 97 made a lot of fortunes for people that bought correctly and held. And we're going to have that opportunity again. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your attention.